Hello, everybody. Michael DDA here. Thank you for joining me. Last week, we covered the 10 Commandments. Boy, I'll tell you, there's a lot that we can learn from the 10 Commandments. There's a lot of things that we take for granted. You know, if we take something for granted, even sincerely take it for granted, does that make it true? You know, it's the truth that's going to set you free. It's the truth that's going to allow you to get deeper understandings concerning Yehovah's set-apart ways, and help us to get to know Yehovah at the same time. Remember, it was always about knowing Yehovah and his eternal and unchanging ways when we were talking, especially in Yasher, concerning Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. We want to know Yehovah and know his ways. As I said last week, we talked about the 10 Commandments. The very first one was, you shall have no other Elohim existing before my face. Here it is, number 2, verse 2. I am Yehovah, your Elohim, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. You shall have no other Elohim existing before my face. Here it is. I wrote it out so you can see exactly what it says. But we talk about Elohim. This is a plural form of Elohim. And it's the Elohim who's giving us this commandment about the Elohim. When we look at Elohim, we have to understand that it's plural, but it can be a quantitative plural or it can be a qualitative plural. If we're talking about the qualitative plural, we're generally talking about the Elohim on the mountain. Not the mountain of Elohim, the Elohim on the mountain. And Elohim is where we get statutes and judgments and ordinances. We left the Elohim of Egypt and started following the statutes and judgments and ordinances of Yehovah. We hardly even know them yet. It said in 16 and 17 that he gave us some statutes. Didn't say what they were. But now in 21, 22, and 23, we're going to start getting some judgments. Mishpat is what it's called. We'll talk about that in a moment. But here we're talking about Elohim. Yehovah did not give any commandments to anyone in Egypt, Ethiopia, America, Europe. He gave them to the men who left the Elohim that they were born under, the Egyptian Elohim, and started following Yehovah. They became a ger when they did that. And when they participated in Passover, they became the Ezra men, Israel, Yehovah's firstborn son. You can become Yehovah's firstborn son, man. But don't think that he is your Elohim if you're still following the Elohim of the land of your birth. It's erroneous. It's a lie. And remember, we talked last week that we wear tzitzit, so we do not follow the harlotry that our heart is inclined to follow. The harlotry that he's talking about is following the Elohim of the land. rather than Yehovah, our Elohim. Didn't tell ladies to wear the tzitzit. Didn't tell Ger to wear the tzitzit. Didn't tell servants to wear the tzitzit. Didn't tell foreigners to wear the tzitzit. He told Israel's seed, Numbers 15 at the end. Now, today's lesson, which is actually going to go over 3 weeks. We're going to do one per week, 21 today, 22, 23. I'm entitling it this way. Men, women, servants, and ger are not treated the same by Yehovah. Men, women, servants, and ger are not treated the same by Yehovah. Now, look at the 4th commandment. Here it is. Remember the Sabbath to keep it holy. 6 days thou, remember who was the thou? We did kind of a process of elimination last week to find out who the thou was. Thou shall labor, 6 days thou shalt labor and do thy work. But the 7th day is the Sabbath of Yehovah, thy Elohim. Whoever the thou is has Yehovah as their Elohim. In it, thou shalt do no work. Thou, or thy son, or thy daughter, or thy male servants, or thy female servants, or thy cattle, or thy stranger who is within thy gates. So we see here that the thou is not the son, not the daughter, not the servant, female or male, certainly not the cattle, and not the stranger that's in our gate. The only person that was left was the ladies. Bone of our bone, flesh of our flesh. Is she the thou that he's speaking to? Was she on the mountain? Remember in Exodus 19, he said, don't go near a woman. I want you clean and ready to come and see me in 3 days. No ladies there. But what does he say about the ladies? We got to go to Commandment 10. Look what it says about the ladies. You shall not covet thy neighbor's house. I think it's interesting. The house gets first billing. Remember, that includes the land too. Pretty important. Because remember, it was all about the land and the seed. The land and the seed, the land and the seed. The Ezra are the seed who receive the commandments and are soon. It took us a few extra years, 40 extra years than it should have, to get our land. But it's all about the land and the seed. So not surprising, it has the house first. You shall not covet thy neighbor's house. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's woman. Oh, you know what? Sometimes we have to ask ourselves what it doesn't say. It doesn't say, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's husband. Does it? It said thy neighbor's woman. But look what it goes on to say. Nor his male servant, nor his female servant, nor his ox, nor his donkey, nor anything that is thy neighbor's. Do you understand what it's saying? Your woman, your neighbor's woman, is your possession. Your neighbor's woman is his possession. The woman is a possession. Bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh. She's my hand, my arm, my mouth. But she doesn't do anything that I don't ask her to do. Oh my goodness. Does a woman go into the tabernacle of Yehovah Does a woman bring a sin offering? Does a woman bring a shalamim or an olah offering? No, 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 no. There's different duties and responsibilities for a man and for a woman, for a ger, for a servant, even for children. They're not treated the same. So with that introduction, I want us to start with Exodus 21 today. And I want you to watch for the differences in those different kinds of people. Man, woman, servant. I'm talking about male servants and female servants, Aved and Amah, or Shivka, as two different kinds of lady servants. And the ger. You could even add the sons and daughters, because sons and daughters are treated differently too. So, as we go through these, keep your ears open, keep your eyes open, keep your heart open. You know, some of these things that I'm going to tell you today, it happens pretty much regularly, unfortunately, are going to go against your grain. You're right away going to say, oh, no, 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 no. But I'm going to show it to you in black and white. We just saw what Yehovah says about a woman. Property. He didn't speak to her about the Ten Commandments. The Ten Commandments aren't obligatory. Is that the word? For her. She follows her man. What did Yehovah say? First commandment. First time he talked to the woman. You know, we think he's talked to the woman, the man, and the woman the whole time. No, he talked to the man. The first time he said anything to the woman, he said, thy desire shall be for thy man, and he shall rule over you. Not I shall rule over you. He shall rule over you. We got a leadership role in the family. The man, the woman, the children. And even with the children, the servants, the woman takes a secondary role. The man takes the primary role. If she says something, makes a vow, he can overrule the vow. We've got to dig deeper. We've learned this business about Christianity. Oh, yeah, we're going to be saved. All I got to do is believe in Jesus. Psha. Ridiculous. You don't know Yehovah's ways. You've been played by the Catholic Church. We've got to dig deeper. When Jesus was supposedly talking to Nicodemus at Passover, he said, are you a teacher of Israel and you don't know these things? I had to ask myself, what things should he have known about being born again that even Nicodemus didn't seem to know? Well, you know what? There's a whole lot of rabbis in the world who don't know. They don't know what an Ezra man is. They don't know how an Ezra man becomes an Ezra man. How a Ben Nakar, a foreign man, can become a ger. We don't know Yehovah's ways, and we've got to learn them. I'm trying to help us understand, and we get to see today how so many of these pieces fit together. I like seeing how the small pieces fit into the whole of Yehovah's word. So let's begin. It says, now these are the judgments which thou shalt set before them. Well, here we have two hanging pronouns. We have to ask ourselves, who's he talking to? Who's talking? And who's he talking to? And who are the them? Well, to do that, we have to go back a chapter. Look what it says here. This is Moses. He went up to the mountain. So the people stood afar off. Moses drew near to the thick darkness where Yehovah was. Then Yehovah said to Moses, thus you shall say to Israel's seed, the Ezra man. This is a continued conversation that Yehovah is having with Moses that is continuing from 26 of Exodus 20. So who's he talking to? He's talking to Moses. Moses is the thou in this case, and Israel's seed is the them. But in the very next verse, because this is what you should say to them, now these are the judgments which you shall set before them. Now he's going to talk to Israel's seed. This is what Moses is going to say to Israel's seed. If thou buy a Hebrew servant. Remember, they are the Hebrews. The Ezra men are the Hebrews. They've crossed over. They left the kingdom of their birth and became Yehovah's men. Let me talk just a moment about the judgments. The word is mishpah. It's ha-mishpah, mishpakim, mishpakim. The judgments is what we're talking about, the judgments. What's a judgment? So it's a masculine noun meaning a judgment, a legal decision, a legal case, a claim, paper, rectitude. The word that connotes several variations in meaning depending on the context. It is used probably the vast majority of the times to mean this. It is used to describe a legal decision or judgment rendered. It describes a legal decision given by Elohim to be followed by the people, his people. You know, you always have to be wary when you read these commentaries, these dictionaries. Because oftentimes we're smarter than they are. They don't know what an Ezra man is. They don't know who Yehovah gave his commandments to. Most think he gave them to the children of Israel and everybody was there. But we know better, don't we? We learned. I hope. So, here's the first one. If thou buy a Hebrew servant, remember, you are Hebrew. But they're talking about buying a Hebrew servant. How does it happen that you're buying a Hebrew servant? I have to ask myself questions like this. We can buy one who voluntarily puts himself in servitude, or we could buy one who involuntarily puts himself in servitude. Both, I think, are going to be set free on the year of release, every 7 years. Do you take a Hebrew servant in the 5th year, 2 years before the year of release, or do you take him at the beginning, right after the year of release, so you get the biggest benefit from his service? I would think you'd want to have the latter, but sometimes maybe it just works out that it's the former. We're going to get him in the 5th year. He's only going to work 2 years for us, and he's released. But look what it says. If you buy a Hebrew servant, a Hebrew aved, the word that we're using here is aved. This is the word here, aved. Aved servant. It's a male servant. Aved are always males. If you buy a Hebrew servant, he shall serve these 6 years. So how does that work? And in the 7th year, he shall go out free and pay nothing. So You bought a Hebrew servant. Hopefully it's in the in the 8th year, or beginning of the new set. And then after 6 years, he goes out free. We're going to actually send him out with a blessing for a new start and a new life. In the 7th year, he shall go out free. I want you to listen to this. This is voluntary servitude. Here it says, this is Leviticus 20:25. And if one of thy brethren who dwells by thee becomes poor and sells himself to thee, thou shalt not compel him to serve as an aved, as a servant. Henry, K153, thank you for joining us. We're just beginning. And then he shall depart from thee, he and his children with him, and he shall return to his own family. He shall return to the possession of his fathers. Remember, it's about the land and the seed, the land and the seed. Look what he says. For they, the Hebrew servant, are my servants, whom I brought out of the land of Egypt. I am Yehovah, who brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. We were servants to Pharaoh. We became his servants. He says, they shall not be sold as slaves. You shall not rule over him, as the Hebrew servant, with rigor. But you shall fear your Elohim, thy Elohim. Thou shalt fear thy Elohim. And as for thy male or female slaves, whom thou, did I miss a verse here? Yeah, he shall return to my possessions, for they are my servants, whom I brought out of the land of Egypt. They are my servants. They're not your servants. They're my servants. And as for thy male and female slaves, whom thou may have from nations that are all around thee, from them thou may buy male and female slaves. You know, they use slaves rather than servants. I think there's a purpose for that. Don't read it as slaves. Read it as servants. I think the world, the publishers, especially those who own the publishing companies, they wanted to make Yehovah's ways as grievous as possible. That's why they always say sacrifices instead of slaughters. They want to use the very worst they can so they can turn you away. But let's read it as servants. They are my servants. They are your servants. It's the same word. How come they use servants here and slaves here? You have to ask yourself those kinds of questions. So he says, moreover, thou may buy Garim seed. This is Garim seed. They said the children of the Gers, or the servants of the strangers. It's the Garim seed. Remember, I said there are different restrictions or different ways for men, women, servants, and the Ger who dwell with you. You can't buy a servant a possession from your brethren, but you can get it from the Gerim. Moreover, thou may buy Gerim's seed who dwell among you, among thee, and their families who are with thee, which they beget in thy land, and they shall become thy property. Yehovah is not saying they are my servants, is he? Because they're not. They're your servants. If they're in your land, you are the Elohim, the Adonai over them. Oh, did you just say Elohim, Michael? Oh, you're ridiculous. Oh, you think so? Well, wait and find out. They shall become thy property. 26 or 25-46, last verse. And thou may take them as an inheritance for thy seed after thee, to inherit them as possessions, that they shall be thy permanent servants. But regarding thy brethren, Israel's seed, the Ezra men like you, thou shalt not rule over one another with rigor. And another one, another place he's going to talk about, you shall rule over them as a toshab, or as a hired servant, not as a permanent servant. So this is one way that we get a Hebrew servant voluntarily. He's poor, he sells himself. That's what it said at the beginning. And if one of thy brother who dwells with you becomes poor and sells himself to thee, looks like he sells his family also. Verse 3. If he comes in by himself, he shall go out by himself. If he comes in, it says married, then his woman, his wife, they say wife, his wife. There is no word for wife in Torah. This is woman. It's always woman. If he comes here, let me just read it to you what we're talking about. If he comes in by himself, he shall go out by himself, and the year of release, in the 7th year. If he comes in mastering a woman, this is with a Baaled woman. With a Baaled woman. That's his woman. Then his woman, that's what it says, his woman, his Isha, will go out with him. But, look at the next verse. If his master has given him a woman, not a wife, given him a woman. Here, I'll read it right down here, since you can see it more carefully here. If his master, I'm reading right here, everybody. If his master has given him a woman, this is Isha, his master is Adonai. This is woman. Remember, that's so interesting because we're still talking about the Hebrew servant. But the Hebrew servant, if he sells himself to another man, he's not his own master anymore. The man is his master. If his master has given him a woman, and she has borne him sons, benim, or daughters, benot, the woman and her children. I think it's interesting it doesn't say his children. Why doesn't it say his children? We have to ask ourselves that question. Shall be her masters. Could it be her children because she is her master's? She is mastered by a master other than her husband? And he shall go out by himself. He shall go out by himself. Verse 5. Oh, here. A woman is a possession. A woman, we got to understand this. Then Boaz said to the servant who was in charge of the reapers, whose woman is this? Didn't say who is this woman. Whose woman is this? Every woman in Israel belongs, or should, to some man. We don't let our daughters go to college on their own. They stay in their father's house and they're supervised. We already talked about the commandment here. The master gives his female servant to his male servant to breed more servants for himself. Here, this is something we're going to get to later on today, but we can look at it now. If a man beats his male or female servant with a rod, so that he dies under his hand, he shall surely be punished. Notwithstanding, if he remains alive a day or two, he shall not be punished, for he is his property. You could say they are his property, because we're talking about the man and the woman. Well, that happens to be talking about a servant, but we already said whatever belongs to your neighbor. So we already know that our woman, our Isha, bone of our bone, flesh of our flesh, is our property. Ooh, that's a tough one for people to understand. But there's safety in understanding Yehovah's ways. If you will follow your man, you are working and operating within Yehovah's, how do I always say it? I'll just say it this way, his set apart ways for you. There's different duties, that's what it is, duties and responsibilities for you. Yehovah has duties and responsibilities for a man, and he has duties and responsibilities for a woman. A woman is not going to be having the same duties and responsibilities that a man has. But the world, really by trickery, calling everybody a person, is putting you into a corporate status where men and women are the same. Oh, you have been so lied to. You have no idea. I'm trying to help you, but a lot of stuff is going to be coming out in the very near future. So let's go to 5. But if a servant plainly says, so here he is, he's leaving, but he can't take his woman and his children with him. What's he going to do? Look what it says. But if the servant plainly says, I love my master. This is the Hebrew. This is the Hebrew. The Hebrew servant takes a Hebrew servant. But he's going to leave his wife and his children behind because he's going back to his own land. But if the servant plainly says, I love my master, my woman, and it says son, my son. It doesn't say Yeladim. The other one said Yeladim. This right here says, and her Yeladim. I love my son. I will not go out free. Well, there's a remedy for that. It's in the next verse. And I've got it right here on the right. So let's continue reading here on the right. But if the servant plainly says, I love my master, my woman, my son, I will not go out free, then his master, Adonai, his Adonai, remember he's supposed to be the Adonai, he's a Hebrew. Then his Adonai shall bring him to the Elohim. The Elohim. This is the qualitative, not the quantitative Elohim. These are the Elohim that are in his city, or perhaps in his gates. If he's got very large gates. If he's got small gates, I guess he's the Elohim. He'd probably have to go somebody else just because this is about witnesses. So he's taking them to bring them to the Elohim. Remember, these Elohim don't set up their own statutes and judgments and ordinances. These are wise men who have learned Jehovah's ways, and they're going to judge according to his statutes and judgments and ordinances. This is about finding a witness for the man who's going to become a permanent service, a Hebrew man, that is going to become a permanent servant to another Hebrew man. It says he shall also bring him to the door, to the doorpost, and his master shall pierce his ear with an awl, and he shall serve him forever. He's going to pierce his ear, put it next to the door, put it all through his ear. I imagine there's going to be some kind of jewelry that basically tells anybody around who you belong to. Probably each man has their own look. You know, we use rings. I wonder if Yehovah's women wear an earring of some sort to show who they belong to. Not only his servants, how about his woman as well? I wonder, just a thought. Now, we're talking about the Elohim. Look what it says in Psalms 82, 6 through 8. Yehovah says, you are Elohim, and all you are sons of the Most High. Who's he talking to? He's talking to the Ezra men. You are sons of the Most High. But you shall all die like men and fall like one of the princes. Arise, O Elohim, judge the earth, for you shall inherit the nations. We, the Ezra men, are Elohim. It gets translated as angels because they don't want you to know that a man can become a ger by leaving the country of his birth and joining himself to Yehovah and his people, and then at Passover becoming an Ezra man, a son of the Most High. There's lots of sons. Oh, Jesus was the Son of God. Oh, please, you're killing me. Read Yehovah's word and close that damn New Testament. It's going to destroy you. All right. 6. Then his master shall bring him to the... Oh, that's the one we just read because I read it here. So let's go to 7. Oh, let's see if I have a note on 6. The Elohims, okay, the gods, the judge, lawmakers and judges. Probably I should put lawmakers and judges instead of gods here. Again, I don't use the word gods. I use lawmakers and judges. I use Elohim when I read gods. Then his master, I read that, if any man sells his daughter. Oh, I guess we finished that then. This means that his servants, the man who had his ear posted, those sons of his are going to be permanent servants, and their seed is going to be permanent servants to the original master, the one who bought the Hebrew servants. Guess you need to be careful. If you're a Hebrew servant selling yourself to another Hebrew, another Ezra man, and he gives you a woman, maybe you don't want to get too close to that woman. Not if you value your freedom. Because you're selling a lot to stay with that woman and your family. That's a costly deal. Because you're going to become permanent servants to that man. Just something to think about. You know, a lot of these things make us maybe make decisions that we might not otherwise make. He can give you a woman. You may not take that woman and have any babies with her. If she does, we got to read 7. We're on 6. And if a man sells his daughter, now here's a man selling his daughter. You know, whenever you see this blue here, purple, whatever this color is, it's kind of a new thought. So I want you to understand that we're talking about a new thought. The first thought we were talking about was the Hebrew servant that the man buy. If thou buy a Hebrew servant. All this was about that servant. Now we're changing gears, and it says, if a man sells his daughter. So this is a man selling his daughter to be a female servant. The word here that we're talking about, this is a man, an ish, that would indicate to me, he's given his statutes and his judgments and his ordinances to his Ezra men, that the man is an Ezra man. And when you see the word ish, that would tend to make sense that we're talking about an Ezra man, Israel's seed. So this is a man, an Ezra man, that's selling his daughter to be an amah. An amah. This servant is one who works outside the house. There's another servant, a shifka, that works inside the house. That usually gets translated as a maidservant. It says, she shall not go out as the male servants do, as the avadim do. She shall not go out. If she does not please her master, still the same person that we're talking about. She is the daughter, the female servant. If she does not please her master, who has betrothed her to himself, he took her as his woman. That would mean she was a concubine. When you take a woman who is a servant to you, she becomes a concubine. Who has betrothed her to himself, then he shall, let me read it again. If she does not please her master, who has betrothed her to himself, then he shall let her be redeemed. She can be redeemed. How do you redeem a woman? By paying the price that was paid for her, perhaps? Who does it? We're going to find out it's a kindred redeemer. It's got to be a woman. It's got to be a man. It's going to be a man, father, brother, uncle, some relative who is going to redeem her. He shall have no right to sell her to foreign people, since he has dealt deceitfully with her. How has he dealt deceitfully with her? He didn't like her. What did it say? She didn't please him. She does not please her master. If she does not please her master, who betrothed her to himself, she does not please her master. Is that on him? Or is that on her? Is it on both? Then he shall let her be redeemed. You know, if you have a woman in your life that does not please you, you found some uncleanliness in her. We're going to see this in Deuteronomy 24. You can send her away. She doesn't have to be redeemed. But this is someone that we actually bought and took to ourselves. Apparently she has to be redeemed. He shall have no right to sell her to foreign people, since he has dealt deceitfully with her. Why does it say deceitfully? How has he been deceitful? Is that word just being translated as deceitful? 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 Because he has been false to her? This would break the contract he made with her? That's not a translation. Because he has treated her unfairly? Does he expect too much of her to sell her to a foreign people who has no power, having dealt unfaithfully with her? Unfaithfully? No, I don't think so. That'd be crazy. Sell her that he has dealt treacherously with her, broken faith with her. Now you can see there's different things that they say. Sell her to a strange people, Geneva Bible. Seeing he has strange people, that's a foreign people. Nokre, a Nokream, a foreign people. Remember, the Ben Nakar is a foreign man. This is Nokream, foreign people. He doesn't go to a foreign people. Why? Because we don't give our daughters to foreigners. We keep our daughters within Israel's ranks. And I think it has more to do with, well, here I have. I wonder if it's not selling her to foreign people is a salvation issue as well. I think it is. We, Israel, are not allowed to give our daughters to the nations either. Oh, the man who joined us has left already. I'm pretty tough to get sometimes.
Michael,
I'm pretty tough. What's that?
it says betrothed, so that wouldn't be a concubine, right? That would be.
No, I think that would be a concubine. Remember, if she comes from the servants' quarters, she's a concubine. If she comes from a free woman, she's what we would call a wife. Here, we're going to talk about that in just a second. Let me just go back. I know sometimes I can get a little bit on the cutting edge here. I'm always curious, so I have to think, why do they say certain words? So we're talking about a foreign people. We can't sell her to a foreign people. If he has, remember, this is a woman now. This is a woman who a man has sold his daughter to be a female slave. First, the master took her, or in this instance, the master took her. He was unpleased with her. He can't sell her. Now it says if he betrothed to her son, if he has betrothed her to his son, he shall deal with her according to the customs of a daughter. So this would be kind of like a free woman, what you're talking about, I think, V, when we're talking rather than a concubine, because it's not saying concubine here. If he takes another wife, now, you know what? I've always read this as I had a purple thing here. Like it was a new thought. Today I realize this is not a new thought. Because it always bothered me that if he takes another woman, he shall not diminish her food, clothing, or marital rights. If he does not do these three things, let me do this, I don't know what I have. If he does not do these three things for her, then she should go free without paying money. We were just talking about this woman being redeemed. So I realized that we're talking about if he takes another wife, another woman, besides this woman. The woman that we're talking about, another woman, is someone besides this woman that he took into his service. Do you understand what I'm saying? I always treated this as a man has a wife and he takes another wife. I think that's wrong. If he takes another woman, again, we're talking about women. We're not talking about wife. I think we're talking about the woman that he betrothed to himself, and now he's taking another woman. He shall not diminish her. Her is not the other woman, not the new woman. The her is the old woman. He shall not diminish her food, her clothing, or her marriage rights. Marriage rights, what are we talking about? We're talking about sexual intimacy. He shall not diminish her sexual intimacy because he's got another woman. Now, the reason I thought that this was kind of a new idea, and I had that purple there on it to make it a new thought before I realized, oh, it's a sub of this man. It's a sub of this one. If a man sells his daughter, if he takes another woman besides the woman that he took for her, this is the one he took her, but it was displeased her. But this one does displease. This one does please him. She still got him, but he's taking another. He's not going to diminish her food, her clothing, or her marital rights. Now, I think this is really interesting, and here's why I say this. It says, if he takes another woman, he shall not diminish her food, clothing, or marital rights. Again, I had the wrong idea when it said takes another woman besides the Hebrew woman that he already had. And then look what it says. This is Isaiah. It says, in that day, 7 women shall take hold of one man, saying, we will eat our own food, wear our own apparel. Only let us be called by thy name to take away our reproach. Do you hear what's happening here? You have to ask yourself, what is their reproach? Here's 7 women coming to you. We'll provide our own food. We'll provide our own clothing. Only let us be called by your name to take away a reproach. What do you have that they want? What don't they have that is a reproach to them? Any ideas?
Covering.
A covering. That's exactly right. Thank you so much, Wayne, for saying that. They need a covering if they're going to become right with Yehovah. If there's any chance for salvation at all, they need your name. But what is the overall advantage? I think being bone of your bone and flesh of your flesh, when Yehovah returns and the dead rise, I think that the bone of the bone of our bone and flesh of our flesh is going to rise also. Is this where salvation comes from? You know, as we read the scriptures, especially Isaiah, Ezekiel, we begin to see that there's going to be the men are going to be killed first. It's going to leave the ladies uncovered. Many ladies are going to need to be covered. And I think that is why we have women coming to us in the last days who want 7 women shall take hold of one man, saying, we will eat our own food, wear our own apparel. You know, many men would say, I can't afford another woman. Hey, no problem. We'll pay for ourselves. Let us be called by your name. Yeah, there's some interesting things that we got to think about. So yeah, I'm looking at this verse a little bit differently than I have. It's still multiple wives. We're still having multiple women in our lives. This woman would have been a shifka, or would have been a concubine if she was with the master. Apparently not with the master's son. She's not a concubine. I don't know why that is, but it doesn't appear that it is that way. But here we're taking other women into our lives. And if he does not do these 3 for her, then she, see, this is why it occurred to me, we're talking about the same woman. Do these 3 things for her, then she shall go out free without paying money. These guys aren't interested in going out free without paying money. She is, because she is the servant of the man who he betrothed to himself. You see why I'm saying this? I think it's all one big long thought here. All right, next one. He who strikes a man, so that he dies shall surely be put to death. What we're talking about here is Ish. There are no lady Ishes. Ish. We're going to see here, he who kidnaps a man, an Ish, and sells him. He who strikes an ish so that he dies shall surely be put to death. Moot is the word. He who strikes a man so that he moots, dies, shall surely be moot, shall be killed, shall be put to death. Whoever kills any man shall be put to death. Whoever kills a person, the murderer shall be put to death. See, it says person there. But we got to understand that when we're talking about persons, often we're talking about men. Whoever kills a person shall be put to death on the testimony of shall not be put to death, because we shall be put to death on the testimony of witnesses. But one witness is not sufficient testimony against a person for a death penalty. Moreover, you shall take no ransom for the life of a murderer who is guilty of death. Oh, that's so interesting. A murderer who is guilty of death, no ransom, but he shall surely be put to death. There is a case where you can give a ransom. We're going to talk about that today, further down. Oh, that's talking about some murder as well. Okay, let me continue. However, if he did not lie in wait, but Elohim delivered him into his hand, then I will appoint for you a place where he may flee. This is Exodus 21. We're just leaving the mountain. We're just learning these things. This is probably the same week. We're not going to hear about the place where a man can run to, the, what do they call it?
Cities of refuge.
Cities of refuge. It's right on my note here. The cities of refuge. We're not going to even learn about that until we get to Deuteronomy. That's almost as we're getting ready to go into the land. Numbers talks about it as well, I believe. So, however, if he did not lie in wait, but Elohim delivered him into his hand. Elohim delivered him into his hand. It was an accident. The axe slipped. The head came off, and it hit my friend, and he died. Elohim delivered him into his hand. Then I will appoint for thee a place where he may flee. And we talk about this, like I say, this is Deuteronomy. In Canaan, we had 3 cities, Kadesh, Shechem, Hebron, and in the east of the Jordan, we had Golan, Ramoth Gilead, and Bizar. One high north, one kind of central, one low south. In both cases, so that people could run. I wonder sometimes if one was kind of take a choice, they would maybe run instead of one that's closest. They might go to the run that's a little bit further, thinking that the Avenger of Blood is going to assume he's going to the closer city and try to head him off at the pass. You know, those are things you got to think about if you accidentally kill somebody. You want to be safe. If you did it on purpose, you're a goner. They're going to know. Because when you run to the city of refuge and they hear the story, they're going to deliver you into the Avenger of Blood. All right. But if a man acts with premeditation against his neighbor to kill him by treachery, this is the Rashak. You shall take him from my altar. That he may die. Say he runs to the city of refuge. I think this is what we're talking about. There's maybe an altar in the city of refuge. He's gonna take him from there and deliver him into the Avenger of Blood. New thought. This is a man striking a man. You know, where did I have it? Maybe it's still coming. Here we are. And if he strikes his father or his mother, and he who strikes his father or mother shall surely be put to death. Now, I think this is interesting because, you know, if it says man, if it kills a man, it doesn't say a man or a woman, it says a man. And it says each in particular. I think that's interesting. But here it says if he strikes his father or his mother, he can certainly add a woman to the list if he wanted to. But he doesn't. Why? He who strikes his father or his mother shall surely be put to death. He who kidnaps a man, and sells him, or if he is found in his hand, he shall surely be put to death. Again, ish, a man. It doesn't say a man or a woman. Could he say a man or a woman? Of course he could. We're going to see he will in a little while here. 17. And he who curses his father or his mother shall surely be put to death. Well, isn't this go along with honor your mother and your father? Here, I think I even have it. Yeah. Honor thy mother and thy father, that thy days may be long upon the land which Yehovah thy Elohim is giving thee. Remember, it's the land and the seed, which Yehovah, the land, long on the land which Yehovah thy Elohim is giving thee. It's land and the seed. For everyone who curses his father or his mother shall surely be put to death. Oh, that's the one we're reading right now, Leviticus 20. Oh, no, that's not that it. He has cursed his father or his mother, his blood shall be upon him. Deuteronomy, curses the man who treats his father or his mother with contempt. And all the people shall say, Amen. Whoever curses his father or his mother, his lamp will be put out in deep darkness. Doesn't sound good. There is a generation that curses its father and does not bless its mother. If men contend with each other, and one strikes the other with a stone or with his fist, and he does not die, but is confined to his bed, if he rises again and walks about outside with his staff, then he who struck him shall be acquitted. He shall only pay for the loss of his time and shall provide for him to be thoroughly healed. What about the man who doesn't get up? Are we going to talk about that man still before we're done here? Again, I started a new, this is two men contend with each other. What if he doesn't get up? We have to ask these kinds of questions. This is if he gets up. Then he's going to provide thoroughly for his to be healed. 20. And if a man beats his male or female servant with a rod, this is a man, we're talking about a Hebrew man, the Ezra man, beating his male or female, his aved or ma, with a rod so that he dies under his hand, he shall surely be punished. Not killed, punished. Why? Because he or she is his property. Notwithstanding, if he remains alive for a day or two, he shall not be punished, for he is his property. You see why I say there's different laws? Yehovah's laws do not apply to men, women, servants, gerim, the same way. Here's one that I thought was interesting. Remember we were talking about a man, if a man kills a man. And it reminded me of this one in Genesis. It says, surely for your lifeblood, I will demand a reckoning from the hand of every beast. I will require it. And from the hand of the man, this is Ha-Adam, and from the hand of Ha-Adam, from beast and Ha-Adam, from the hand of every man's brother. Here's again, this is Genesis 9, talking about the avenger of blood. From the hand of every man's brother, I will require the life of the man. Whoever shed the man's blood, by man, the avenger of blood, his blood shall be shed. For in the image of Elohim, he made Ha-Adam. These are all Ha-Adam. Ha-Adam, 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 Ha-Adam. Just like this, Ha-Adam. Not Ha-Isha. Ha-Adam. So I put, what about a woman? Inquiring minds, they want to know. Well, we already talked about this. You shall not covet your neighbor's house. You shall not cover your neighbor's woman. His hot male servant, his female servant, nor his ox, or his donkey, nor anything that is your neighbor's. The 10 Commandments is about a man coveting the 10th commandment is about a man coveting his neighbor's property. The woman is property. Oh, I know this really flies in the face of women's liberation, doesn't it? You know, women's liberation, that's only since World War II, at best. It says we've come a long way, baby. Yeah, we've come a long way out of the way. From Yehovah's ways, we've come a long way. We have no idea how bad it is. Okay, notwithstanding, if he reigns alive for 2 or 3 days, he shall not be punished, for he is his property. Yeah. If men fight. Oh, yeah, maybe this is what I saw. Here's men fighting. And hurt a woman. Hurt a woman with child. It doesn't say woman with child. Here's what it says. It says a pregnant woman. A pregnant woman. And men fight and hurt a pregnant woman, so that she gives birth prematurely. Yet no harm follows. He shall surely be punished. These are men that were fighting, and one of them, seems like both of them really hurt the woman, but maybe one in particular hurt the woman. He shall be punished. According to the woman's Baal, the Isha's Baal, so that's what it says, the woman's Baal, the woman's master, we would call her husband. But I think we limit our understanding if we use that word husbands, because, you know, what if she's a servant of the man? The child belongs to her master. Does a woman servant, if you heard a woman servant, what's her Baal? Her Baal is her master. Same thing. See, we limit our understanding if we use this wife-husband business. The assumption is always made that the pregnant woman is mastered or Baaled. Yeah, isn't that interesting? If a man fight and hurt a pregnant woman, gives birth prematurely, yet no one harm follows, she shall surely be punished accordingly to the woman's Baal, as the woman's Baal imposed on him. It makes the assumption that every woman is mastered by some man. Covered is a good way to talk about this. Covered by some man. there are not supposed to be any unwed mothers in Israel's land. Was there? Of course there was. That's why we have bastards. They don't have fathers. Not what Yehovah intends. Of course, this day and age happens all the time, doesn't it? We take it for granted. When I was a boy, that was a serious matter. Nowadays, so now it says, but if any harm follows, then you shall give a life for a life. Now, I don't think that we're talking about the pregnant woman here. Any harm follows, because it's talking about an eye for an eye. If any harm follows, then you shall give a life for a life. Eye for eye, tooth for tooth. Does that mean if the child dies, that you're going to die? Does it mean the child is missing an eye? How is the child going to be missing an eye? How is the child going to be missing a tooth? Doesn't even have teeth yet. So we're not talking about the woman. We're talking about the two men that are fighting. If any harm follows. One of the man knocks out the eye of one of the other man. Knocks out the tooth. Knocks out or hurts the hand. Foot for foot. Burn for burn. Wound for wound. Stripe for stripe. I think that's what we're talking about with two men fighting. Permanent damage, perhaps. 26. If a man strikes the eye of his male or female servant. So here is a man, makes us sound like we're pretty rough on our servants, doesn't it? What do we have? We just had, didn't we have something about our servants here? Kills a servant. If a man beats his male or female servant with a rod so that he dies under his hand, he shall surely be punished. Notwithstanding, really remains alive for a day or two, he shall not be punished. Yeah, what's up with this? Where do our servants come from? I think next week we're going to see a place where some of the servants might come from. And they could be a pretty rough crowd. And I can imagine that maybe it takes a stronger hand to control some of the servants that we inherit. Or take to ourselves, unknowingly perhaps. If a man strikes the eye of his male or female servant and destroys it, he shall let him go free for the sake of his eye. You know, this could be a blessing. Here's a man. Don't think it's a blessing for a woman. But here's a man who's going to be set free on account of losing an eye. Or in the next verse, on account of losing a tooth. If a man goes free, I have to ask myself, could he become a ger? Could he join himself to Yehovah's people? And then at Passover become an Ezra? He couldn't do that as a servant, but he could do that as a free man. Maybe losing an eye or losing a tooth could be a blessing. If he knocks out a tooth tooth of his male or female servant, he shall let him go free for the sake of his tooth. Where is the woman going to go? What's she going to do? She's got no covering now. That stinks. What do you do? Well, let's change subjects again here. We're talking about an ox. If an ox gores a man, look at that. Or a woman. Can Yehovah say or a woman if he wants to say or a woman? Of course he can. There it is right there. If an ox gores a man or a woman to death, and the ox surely is stoned, then the ox shall surely be stoned. its flesh shall not be eaten. It killed a man or a woman. I don't want to say human being. That's not a good thing either. That's like person. Human is the color of man. It's not man or woman. It's like human. Yeah, we don't know. We don't know English. We've been tricked. We can't eat its flesh. But the owner of the ox shall be acquitted. He's not going to be guilty. The ox gored a man or a woman to death. Only the ox is going to be killed. I put here Yehovah specifically includes the woman. What about a son, daughter, male or female servant? I put, keep reading. It's coming. Here it is. But if an ox tended to thrust with its horns in past times past, and it has been made known to the owner, so your ox tried to gore me, and I reported it to you. Now you know. And he has not kept it confined, so that it has killed a man or a woman. Here it is, man or a woman again. The ox shall be stoned, and its owner shall be put to death. Hear that? Its owner shall be put to death. Now, look what it says. I go, what about a daughter? Oh, we already did that one. What does this one say? And it has been made known to the owner. You know, if it were me, and I knew that I had an ox, cow, whatever, that's got horns that would tended to go after people, and it was reported to me, that ox would have to go down right away. He'd become dinner, multiple dinners for the family. Because I'm not going to take a chance once I've been warned of losing my life because of the dang ox. No, that's not going to happen. You can't trust that you're going to keep him always in the gate. He can get out, he can hurt somebody. Better safe than sorry, I say. Kill the dang thing, eat him, and keep yourself safe. Once you've been put on notice. Not going to have that happen to me. Hope you won't have it happen to you. Yeah, look, the ox shall be stoned and the owner shall be put to death. How does he get put to death? Does he get stoned? I wonder. If there is imposed on him, so this is still the same idea. This is a subsection of that. If there is imposed on him a sum of money, remember we talked about a sum of money to redeem his life? Here's a case where you can do it. I don't know if it's automatic or how exactly it works. Then he shall pay to redeem his life whatever is imposed upon him. Now, this isn't a man directly that kills another man or a woman. This is an ox owned by the man who killed another man or another woman, or killed a man or a woman. He can redeem his life. Whether it has gored a son or gored a daughter, according to this judgment, it shall be done to him. Redeem it, redeemed. It looks like this judgment. What is the judgment? So remember, we saw if a man gores a man or a woman, there's one judgment. If he gores now a son or a daughter, we got another judgment. But look at the next verse. If the ox gores a male or female servant, he shall give to their master 30 shekels of silver, and the ox shall be stoned. Hear that? He's simply paying for it. paying to replace the servant. Property. Oh, I know. Sure takes us by surprise when we hear some of these things. If a man opens a pit, what did my notes say here? I guess I didn't have a note on that one. If a man opens a pit, or if a man digs a pit and does not cover it, and an ox or a donkey falls into it, the owner of the pit shall make it good. He shall give money to the owner, but the dead animal shall be his. The responsibility. What's he going to do with a dead donkey? You can't eat a donkey. He doesn't have multiple stomachs. He's just in charge of the disposal. At least with the ox, he can eat the ox. If one man's ox hurts another's. So first we had the ox hurting a man or a woman, then we had an ox hurting a son or daughter, then we had an ox hurting a servant. Now we have an ox hurting an ox. If one man's ox hurts another's, so that it dies, they shall sell the live ox and divide the money from it. And the dead ox they shall divide. Equity. This is what we want in our land. We want equity. You don't sue somebody. We live in such a litigious society right now. We don't sue people. I'm going to get your house because your ox killed my ox. No, oxes do that. They fight. They divide the dead ox and sell the live ox. Everybody goes away happy. Well, nobody goes away happy. They go less sad. But they're equal because it was the ox. The ox is right. Well, last verse. Or, if it has been known that the ox tended the thrust in the past, and the owner has not kept him confined, he shall surely pay ox for ox, and the dead animal shall be his own. Yeah, he's got to pay ox for ox. He's got to give him an ox. My ox died. You got to give me an ox. Not paying cash, he's paying ox. It's equitable. I think it's equitable. I think it's the way things should be. All right. Well, folks, this is the end of chapter 21. We've got 2 more chapters that are going to talk about things like this. Interesting things. We've got to build ideas and understandings based on these, and they got to fit our previous understandings as well. I think they fit mine very well. I hope you're seeing that. All right. Well, folks, thank you for joining me again this week, and we'll pick it up at chapter 22 next week. Thank you so much for joining me. Have a great day. Bye now. Well, I'm totally bum-beefed that guy left. We had a new guy join. What's that?
He didn't stay all that long.
No, he didn't. No, enough for me to go on one of my rants, and that was it.
He can go back and listen to it later.
Yeah. Well, not my problem. I'm going to say what I'm going to say. I got to say what I think Yehovah wants me to say.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
I shared the link in one of my law groups. They've got different categories, and they've got a group called God's Laws and Religion or something like that.
Oh, really? Maybe that's where it came from then.
Yeah, he did, because he liked it. I went back to see, and yeah, that's where it came from. I shared it in there, in that group that we're in, Wayne, the MCM group. I shared it in there too.
Oh, yeah.
That's where he came from, but he left, I think, somewhere around where you started talking about women being property. So I guess he didn't like that. Who knows?
What does he do with the 10th commandment? I don't understand.
I know. Truth hurts sometimes.
Well, and I try to tell people, you're not going to like some of the things that I say. I'm sorry, V, I interrupted you.
Oh, I was just going to say, I thought he could maybe get through that. If it was a woman, I could understand her leaving, but